Okay, as usual, we'll start with acknowledgement of country. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we all are coming from today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I'm speaking to you from Boonwurrung land. Please feel free to tell us in the chat where you are coming to us from, where you are joining us from today. My name is Steve Capitelli. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the chair of the AALL PD committee. And I'd like to welcome the other members of our committee who are here today. Alice Lee, Alexandra García. I'm not sure if our other members are here. Is Hui Fang here? I can only see about 5 people on my screen at the moment. And Sue Gallagher, they're the other members. So today I'm introducing you to our presenter, Alexandra García. She's a senior lecturer at the University of Sydney, leading the Learning Hub, Academic Language and Learning. The Learning Hub provides support in the areas of academic language and learning to undergraduate, postgraduate and HDR students. In addition to research in the field of academic support for tertiary studies, she also investigates language and ideology from the perspective of systemic functional linguistics and corpus linguistics. But today she is presenting to us on an approach to the design of adjunct and embedded workshops that support students with the academic language aspects of specific assignments within units of study. These workshops are provided as the follow-up support of a non-compulsory post-entry language assessment at the University of Sydney. So without any more talk from me, I will hand you over to Alex.
Thank you, Steve. I would also like to acknowledge the custodianship in the lands that the University of Sydney stand, which is mostly Gadigal land, but I'm currently working from home on Wallumedegal country, which is, for the ones who are in Sydney, it's the area of Bladesfield. So what I'm going to talk to you about today, I'm going to give you a bit of the context of where this discipline-specific support is delivered at the University of Sydney. And I'm going to outline an approach to designing that support, which consists of what we call SCANA support workshops. I'll explain what SCANA means in a minute. And I'm also going to talk briefly on the impact and feedback we have received from this approach and these support workshops. So the discipline-specific support at the University of Sydney, one aspect of it, and probably the largest aspect, is the SCANA initiative. The SCANA stands for Student Communication and Needs Analysis, which consists of a language screening task. It's not diagnostic, it's just screening. And it's basically the academic English screening test designed by the Language Center at the University of Melbourne. And that is complemented with support for assignments. Initially, we had 10 adjunct tutorials. However, students did not respond well to that because of the increasing workload. So we decided to change our approach to 2 or 3 workshops that focus on support for specific assignments. So the SCANA tool that we have renamed is an online self-marking language screening task, which looks like this. There are 2 tasks. The first one is a closed test where students have to fill in the blanks based on their knowledge of the context, vocabulary, grammar. And the second task is a quick reading task where they have to click on the word that does not belong. And this task has been validated and it correlates with English as an additional language and also with academic performance. However, we do not implement it only for international students. We provide it for all students at the university. So the process is the following. In certain units of study, we advise students to take it's between 15 and 30 minutes, the online task. And it categorizes students into 3 bands. With band 1, the one that requires more support. So what it tells us is that students are at risk of academic failure if they do not receive the support that they got. And we have found that if they receive the support, they can pass their units and they can even thrive in their units of study. So bands 2 or 3 have moderate and lower no support needs. Now we designed the SCANA support workshops mostly for band 1, but we have found that we have students from all bands and even students that have not taken the task. And we also recommend other of our offerings, like our generic workshops, peer programs, and self-access resources. We do not tell the students that they are in band 1 or 2 or 3. They receive an email that says, congratulations on taking this kind of task. Based on your results, we recommend that you follow this support. But we don't give them a score. We don't give them a band. Okay. So University of Sydney is an elite university. So most students, almost 80%, are in band 3. However, we do have about a bit over 20% that are in bands 1 and 2 and that require support. Yet the support that they receive is not remedial, is developmental. So even the ones from band 3 that take the support do significantly better than the ones that don't. So we started in 2021 with only 7 units of study. And in last year, we have expanded to all faculties and schools. This year, we have even reached the School of Business. That was the only school that we hadn't reached. So last year, we targeted about 20,000 students in over 50 different units of study. There was about a 40% engagement with tasks, which is significantly high considering that it's not compulsory. Now, engagement with support tripled in 2023. It went from 1,200 attendances to over 4,000 attendances to support workshops. Now, we cover a wide range of disciplines and genres. So from architecture to sociology to geosciences, pharmacy, chemistry, music, and arts, and also a quite diverse range of genres. So we support students with annotated bibliographies, essays, reports, literature, and in these reports, there are different kinds of reports. There's a lab report, there's a scientific report, there are visual reports in architecture, there are reflective assignments, legal essays, and math problems. And you'll wonder, math problems, but we're academic language and learning. How do we support them with math problems? So we found that there was an academic language aspect of in the math issues. For example, if the students are given these 2 questions, if they're given question A, they do well. If they are given question B, which is exactly the same, they cannot work it out. So there is a component of reading. Now, we do not deliver the support for this one. The Math Learning Hub does the support, but they receive, they plan the workshop with the support of a learning success advisor from us. So there is academic language and learning and math working together to design the support for this. Okay, so how do we approach the design of the support? So you say we are a staff or currently 6 full-time staff. And with this range, we have to provide support. For example, in this semester, we have to provide support to 24 different units of study. So how do we design discipline-specific workshop for each of these units of study? So we start with the needs analysis, and that consists of reviewing assignment instructions, learning outcomes, and rubrics. And a very important aspect of this is discussing with the lecturer what are the problematic language areas. And even though an essay or a report has more or less the same requirements, each lecturer has their own thing. So there is one lecturer that says, in law, for example, it says that every sentence needs a citation because all the information they get it from somewhere. So I need a citation at the end of every sentence. So we focus on that, on how to do that. There is another one, which is the problem is that they do not synthesize and they just say, this study says this study says that, and this study says that, and they are not able to synthesize. So we focus on, so the point of view of the lecturer is crucial to design that. So because they are the ones marking and they are the ones who identify these common issues that appear again and again. If we're lucky, we get some samples from past students so that we can actually see what the problems are, because sometimes we have found that what the lecturer says is not exactly the problem that we identify in the in the papers. And in some cases, a few cases, there is a diagnostic written task. For example, in pharmacy, the lecturer made taking the scanner compulsory, and they also had to write a sample text, and that was used to design the workshops. So how do we design for all these disciplines and for all these different types of assignments? So we have come up with a structure that is, first, we start with understanding the question and assessment criteria, then finding, selecting, and managing sources. And only these two aspects just save students a lot of heartbreak or heartache. Many students do not understand the question when they read. They may read the question and they do not exactly what it is that the lecturer is asking. An example, there was a question in law about corruption and assets, and the students understood that corruption was limited to bribes between politicians. But so reading the instructions and the rubrics and even the description of the unit, we realized that what the lecturer meant by corruption included things like money laundering and any possessions obtained illegally, not necessarily just by politicians or bribes. Then finding, selecting sources. Many students do not know how to use a library catalog or how to use a referencing management software. Key is the structure of the assignment. And finally, revising and proofreading. So most of our workshops are structured in these 4 stages of understanding the assignment, and we adapt to each particular workshop. So relevant to understanding the question, so we start with looking at the instruction. That is usually the only part that the students look at. But we also make them notice the rubrics and the learning outcomes that many do not know exist. And we looked at the relationship between those 3 elements. What does it look like? So this, I'm going to illustrate my points with examples from different disciplines. This is one from architectural history. So these are the learning outcomes, and I have highlighted here anything that has to do with communication, with expression of ideas. So they have to articulate ways and articulate a critical stance, and they have to include textual analysis, referencing recourse to reading authorities. They have to compose convincing formal written arguments. So that's what they need to demonstrate in order to pass the unit. In the rubrics, what does it look like? You need to provide either insightful use of relevant literature, not just, and those are important things, like how many references do I need to cite? Do I only use the course readings? Do I need to search for more? Those things students need to be clear on. Or they have to make critical use of the literature. But what does critical use of the literature mean? And they don't understand. They see this word critical, but they do not know what being critical means. So we introduce them to this. This is the types of academic writing, the Onion model that was developed originally by the Learning Center, which was the predecessor of the Learning Hub, where we have descriptive text, analytical text, persuasive text, and also critical text that challenge and evaluate. So we show students how to recognize each of those types of text. So here's an example. We show them, this is for that workshop on architectural history. They read this text about Hagia Sophia, and they have to identify the different types of writing that are in the text. I'll give you a few seconds to have a read. Okay, so here the students should identify that the first part is only descriptive text, and the second part starts to be persuasive. So in the first part is just saying things about Hagia Sophia, when it was built, who built it, the names that it has had, so very factual. But here it starts to be persuasive because you have an argument, you have a position to defend. So you cannot argue when Hagia Sophia was built or who built it, because those are facts in history. But whether it changed the history of architecture, that's something that you can argue for or against. So they need to start seeing the difference between these two. Then we build on that So once you know that you're making an argument, then you need to identify the difference between claims, you're just stating what your position is, and then the evidence that you present in order to support that claim. And that's important for them because it would help them structure they need to structure their essay around a number of claims. So they have an argument that is supported by some claims, and each claim needs to be supported with evidence. And that gives them a lot of clarity about how they need to organize their text, because many just read a lot about the topic or read a lot about the building and they just dump it on the page without any specific structure or guide. Then we move to finding, selecting, and managing sources. Many students only use the simple version of Google. We introduce them to Google Scholar and the library catalog, but we extend it to AI search engines and PDF readers. We have a problem that students are not reading texts in English. They copy and paste in a translator, and they only read, many of them read in their first language. And that obviously has implications for their ability to read, to understand, and even to write if they are not engaging with academic English. So we are providing them with tools that can help them in the process. And we also introduce them to referencing management software. The university has a license with EndNote. However, we found that especially undergraduate students find EndNote too cumbersome and it's not user-friendly at all, and they give up. And they may lose up to 10 points just because their references are not formatted correctly. So we introduce them to a different software. So one of the AI tools that we use for finding sources is Elicit. And rather than using keywords, you can simply ask a question. These tools that I'm going to show you, many of them either are free or have a free version that the students can use. So once you ask the question, it provides you with a summary and then a list of the papers that indicate that. They give you an abstract summary. You may also add what columns you have here, like what outcomes they measure in that study. If you wanted specifics about the participants, they would tell you how many participants, findings, that would be, so there are quite a number of headings that they can use for this. This will help them select the sources that they need more quite easily. Once they identify a source that they think it's relevant, they find useful, there is some analysis. It tells you if they can trust this paper. It gives you possible critiques. It tells you where it has been cited and how it has been cited. And you can ask questions about the paper with help with reading. Like if you want to, okay, what were the methods that were used? It would give you an answer and also point to the section of the paper where the answer is. So it would help them with the reading and processing of the paper. Now, it also provides them with a summary, and I ask them, can you copy that summary into your report? We do analyze that, for example, this is very descriptive. There is no synthesis. There is no analysis in this part. It just gives you a bit of information. So it may guide you into which papers to read, but it would not be a good idea to just copy and paste that into there because there's no analysis and there is no relationship. There is no structure. There is no argument for that. So we also show them how ChatGPT does it and try to discourage them from using ChatGPT and we show them how problems with the hallucinations, but also even with things like providing outlines, we find that ChatGPT is not very effective at providing outlines. It's very descriptive in the outlines that they provide. So we teach them how to create an outline rather than just copying an outline from ChatGPT. So examples of online resources for finding, selecting papers, we have Elicit, the one I show you. There's also Connected Papers, Research Rabbit. You can just Google those and they are very user-friendly, so very intuitive to learn. With Chat PDF has the same function of elicit, where you upload a paper and it gives you a little summary and you can ask questions and have a dialogue with the paper. There's also Perplexity, where you can do the same thing. And for managing sources, Zotero is the one that we use, is one that we recommend because you can basically learn to use it in 10 minutes rather than a 3-hour workshop with EndNote where you end up with more questions than answers. Okay. Now moving on to structuring the assignment, we show them how to do the outline using note-taking software, how to complete a synthesis grid, and to identify abstract theoretical concepts to structure sections.
Sorry to break in, Alex. I think you stopped sharing your PowerPoint. Did you still want to? I can't see it anymore. What about other people?
Can the others see it?
I can see it.
Oh,
I can see it too.
well, that's
Yeah.
weird. It just disappeared from my,
Oh,
my screen for some reason. All right, never mind.
Okay, no worries. Thanks for it. Okay. So this is an example from chemical engineering. They had to write a literature review about the process of extracting a particular mineral. So they had choices. It was cobalt and others. But a structure was given. So they had to have an introduction. They had to have a literature review explaining the process of mining and the different types of mining and the process of extraction and technology applications. And it even told them how many words and how many sources they had to use in each. So it was a very structured assignment. There was not much thinking for the students to think regarding how to structure the assignment. So I introduced them to Notion, which is another tool that is free for anyone with an edu email domain. So I like from Notion this toggle function, because when they are if they have this structure and they are reading, for example, about open pit mining, if they find information that is relevant, they can just copy and paste it here, and then they can collapse this, and it's a lot easier than trying to organize your notes in a Word document or any other note-taking device. So this toggle function allows students to jump from section to section, and they find it very useful. I use it when I'm starting with the outlining process, and they can place information under each toggle and collapse it when they move on to another piece of information. But after that, they also need to learn how to do a synthesis grid, which is a bit like what Elicit was doing for them. But Elicit has a fixed set of headings for the columns. In this case, they needed to come up with their own, for example, where is it used? Where is this mineral used for? So it can be used for energy storage. So that was Notion. You'll get the slides with all the links. The form of the mineral, I don't have the answer here, but that's something that they could include. What are the advantages of this compared to others? So it has high power density. What are the disadvantages? And there they will write the sections or the pages where they use. So this is an example of headings that they could use to structure the information regarding that. So that's something that they need to be able to do, not just to get an AI to do it for them. Then we move on to synthesizing sources. And here I show them, students usually focus on paraphrasing, and they take one sentence and they change the synonyms and they change it sentence by sentence. However, it's very common, this is where this, you see, for example, that it has the references 4 to 7. That means that the person who wrote this, 6, 7, had to read 4 different papers to write one sentence. So what the approach that I take is, how are they going to write this sentence based on 4 other sentences? That is a very high skill, that it takes them time to get there. So what I do is I show them the synthesis, and I show them the original. So this is the original sources from these 4 to 7. And then we do an analysis of how these 4 sources came to be this sentence here. So it starts to talk about noble metal-based materials. So what I asked them to do is to find any references to those noble metal-based materials in the sources. So we see that here's PT is platinum. Now, I didn't know anything about it. Chemistry was one of my favorite subjects. So preparing for this, it takes a lot of reading, and ChatGPT helps and the AI helps, but you need to find, okay, so here's talking, I had to find, okay, is platinum a noble metal-based material? So I learned that platinum was a noble metal. Yes, they have questions about how to reference. I'll go back to it. So here's PT, the symbol. Here's platinum, the word. Here's PT based, and here is it's using the antonyms, non-noble metal-based materials. So they see all the different forms in which one element can be referenced in the source. Here it talks about the most effective catalyst, and here talking about catalyst, essential catalytic component, catalyst again, and the fact that it says that it's effective is about promising activity and stability. So you see the different ways in which it's done. So we have a discussion later about lexical cohesion. And when students are synthesizing or paraphrasing, they focus usually on synonyms. They're always looking for a synonym. They have a thesaurus open, like efficient and effective, or they realize that they can also use antonyms. In this case, it's a near antonym or an opposite, noble metals versus non-noble metals. But we introduce them to 2 other relations that are probably more useful, I think, that's synonyms, which is hyponymy. And I tell them it's a fancy name, but it's a very simple concept. It's just the kind of. For example, platinum is a kind of noble metal. The other one is meronymy, which indicates the relation part of. For example, catalysts are part of fuel cells. So we tell them, you don't always have to find a synonym to say the same thing. You can go either be more generic or be more specific, or refer to a part or refer to the whole in order to synthesize the information. Okay. Now, in that example, the assignment gave you a very clear outline, how many words in each section, how many references in each section. Now, I'm going to give you an example where no outline is provided, and this is an example from sociology. So, and the question is, how does climate change impact social inequality? So they need to know that they need to have a thesis statement where they are going to say, they're going to answer that question. So climate change either decreases or has no impact or increases social inequality. And they need to find evidence towards that. And they have to say how, or as it has no impact as blah, 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 or how does it decrease it, or how does it increase it? And they need to have at least, I say, 3 points saying how it increases or how it decreases social inequality. So the question is, rather than just starting saying all the reasons, they need to categorize those different types of impact. And in order to categorize them, we teach them about the distinction between concrete and abstract. So we show there, if you're talking about climate change, there are concrete elements like hurricanes and pollution and rivers and cities and populations, but there are abstract concepts like exposure to hazards, there's inequality, there is injustice, there is access. So we show them that they need to structure their essay around abstract concepts and provide concrete evidence to support those points. So an example is that climate change has increased social inequality by increasing exposure of disadvantaged groups to climate hazards. So exposure is an abstract concept that supports this idea that it has increased social inequality. Letting them know that they need to organize it around an abstract concept gives them a lot of clarity about their structure of their assignment. Then they need to find evidence to support each point. So for example, in this case about increasing exposure, they can talk about low-income African Americans affected by heat waves and pollution, and then they would need to find the source that were about floods in Bangladesh and India, or about drought and famine in Somalia, for example, and they would have to find 2 or 3 examples to support each point. Now we're going to move on to revising and proofreading the assignment. We're going to look at instruction on paragraph structure, information flow, and cohesion and coherence, using AI proofreading tools, and providing checklists for revision. So an example of the things we do when we're teaching how to, about paragraph structure is a simple, we use a lot of H5Ps in our workshops. So they have to, I love this, sort the paragraph. They just need to move up and down, decide which is the order of the paragraph. After they've done it, we look at it in detail and look at why is that the correct answer, the correct order. So they recognize that this is a topic sentence and that there are two abstract concepts in that topic sentence, like controversy and skepticism. But we also look at the given and the new. So skepticism was what we call new because it was after the verb. So skepticism was a new concept, but then it becomes given because it has already been mentioned, and you start the next sentence with that given. One of the issues with students is that they tend to begin sentences with elements they have not introduced before, and that causes problems for the examiner. Those are the paragraphs that you have to read like 10 times and you don't know where they are going. It's not because the grammar is wrong, it's because they have chosen new information to begin sentences and it doesn't follow from the rest. So that is a very useful bit of information for them, the difference between given and new. Then we show them, for example, how they can create link ideas to contrast. So here's a contrast between climate change being a natural process as opposed to the result of anthropomorphic actions. And the idea that the controversy is that some people believe this and others believe other things. To close a paragraph, then we have, whatever the cause, we need to do something about climate change. And then we ask the question, who does the author align with? And we show them that even when both positions are presented, the paragraph is not neutral. So this idea that you're presenting neutral information, we try to say that there's no such thing as a neutral essay or neutral information. You need to be able to identify who the authors are aligning with when they are writing, so that you also make your position clear. One of the comments in the feedback for students is that there isn't a clear position that you can see through the test, and every paragraph should show what your position is. Here is an example of another H5P for cohesion and coherence. So they have to identify similar words to this expression involved, that is vulnerable population. So how has that concept been brought again in the paragraph? So we have a repetition that is also valid. We have 90% of the rural population. We have coherency with those who rely on agriculture. And then we have these communities. So they see all the different ways in which you can refer to the same expression or the same concept in writing. Okay, now we are going to move to proofreading. We show them, we started using Writeful, and we had like a number of licenses. This is a paid service, but we were looking at, this was before AI became a thing. So before the launch of the ChatGPT, we were exploring about this one. The option at the point was either choosing between Grammarly and this one, and we went for this one because it is based on academic writing. We piloted it, and at the end we decided not to purchase it, but the provider gave us about 1,000 licenses that we're still offering to the students who are interested. So when you check the document, decide to check the document, it gives you a list of the problems with grammar. It checks, unlike ChatGPT, it doesn't rewrite your whole thing. It checks sentence by sentence and offers options that you then have to either accept or dismiss. So in this case, the pandemic is singular, so simple as that. You just need to click accept. But we tell students, It's artificial intelligence, it's not human intelligence, it makes mistakes. It's about 80% accurate. It's not always accurate. Sometimes it misinterprets something and it keeps you showing suggestions with the same correction that is not appropriate. So you need to exercise your judgment and you need to decide whether what they're telling you is true or not. The phrase bank chat, this one, Rightful has what it calls a sentence palette, which it has a number of expressions that are appropriate for each type, each stage of a journal article in their case. So each stage of the introduction, when you're introducing new previous research, evaluating the research, highlighting the importance of the topic. So it's very useful. My favorite aspect of Rightful is the language search. So for example, instead of saying to help kids cope with the stress, you know that kids is an informal word. So you put it between asterisk and it gives you options to select, and it gives you the frequency of how frequent that is in academic writing. So you would change kids for children. Now, if you have no idea what to put in, so if you don't know what do you do with stress, then you use an underscores and it gives you to help adolescents cope with the stress. So it gives you suggestions. That is very useful for them. Now, finally, that one was still part of Rightful. So this was a language search for Rightful. There is a free version that you can use. So the language search and the sentence palette are free in Rightful. The paid version, the free version, it gives you only half of the suggestions that you would have as opposed to the full version. So if they identify 30 mistakes, the free version will show you 15. So it's still valuable. Yeah, it has 2 L's at the end. Now, we also provide them with checklists because they need to develop when they are revising, proofreading. That's something they usually finish and submit. And they need to revise and proofread. So we give them a checklist. For example, have they included appropriate topic sentences that link back to the thesis statement, include an abstract concept? Have they started sentences with given information? Have they introduced new information at the end of sentences? Have they used cohesion and coherence devices effectively? Have they proofread their text? And we have a number of questions depending on each stage. So there are questions about the thesis statement and all of that, but they find the checklist useful. Okay. Now, what has been the impact of this? These are the results for semester 2, 2023. So what we are comparing here is the grades of the students who attended and the students who didn't attend. So you can see here that the students who attended, here it's a slightly higher average, but the important thing is this bit here. So the students who didn't attend any workshops failed at considerably higher rates. And I did the statistic analysis and it's 99.9% not due to chance. So the log likelihood was in the P0001. So it has been consistent since we started, that student attending, and even the more workshops they attend, the higher the grades and the difference. And this is for all students. For the students in band 1, the difference in average is 8 points. So for example, the average for students in band 1 who didn't attend was 60, and for the ones who attended was 68. So we are having good results. The students who attend are very happy with the support they are provided. Some of the most common words, this is a word cloud of student feedback, and they say that it's useful, that it's helpful, that it clarifies their assignment, that the advice that they get here, they don't get it anywhere else. So that there are things that the lecturers and the tutor assume that they know, but nobody has taught them before. So that's the gist of the feedback that we get from students. We have, over all workshops, we have about 4.8/5 in satisfaction from the students who attend. Now the lecturers are also happy with us. So for example, that assignment, Owen was one of our learning success advisors. So they were saying, Owen is great. Owen is fantastic. So yeah, he was very popular. Now, at the lecture about the literature review on a mineral, he said that he found that the literature reviews were a lot better than last year, so they were easier to mark. And this was actually an embedded workshop. I actually delivered that session during their class time, and we worked together. And so I was teaching how to find the information, and the lecturer was able to make suggestions that were discipline specific, like for example, this journal or this site or this database is more appropriate. So that was a really good experience. And it ultimately depends on lecturer support, because the units where we are more successful is where we get the full lecturer support, because they promote it amongst the students. They tell the students that it's important for them to attend. They provide us with information and access to their Canvas site. So lecturer engagement is important. Sometimes when we start, they are not very convinced, but by the second iteration, then they fully cooperate with us. So that is mostly just a few notes on lecturer feedback. And I think that's time for questions. And that was perfect timing, 1:45.
Thank you, Alex. So are there any questions from the chat? Alice has been monitoring that. While waiting for that, I might ask one of my own. Alex, I don't know if you said it or not, and if you did, I missed it. Was this a series of workshops, or was this one workshop? What was the sort of structure on that level?
It depends on the unit of study. So for example, in a unit like chemistry, where they only have to present one written assignment, there is one workshop. But in a unit in the Faculty of Arts where they have to present 3 essays, then there are 3 workshops. So it varies from unit to unit. So let's go with the questions in the chat. So Alice asked the AI tools policy. So the University of Sydney has a default of AI policy, but then there are some guidelines, and each lecturer decides what they accept and what they don't accept. So in law, for example, they have decided no ChatGPT at all. Other units of study have said, and particular lecturers have said, okay, I want you to go to ChatGPT, ask it this question, look at what it says, and then you're going to make corrections and you're going to build up on that. So the university is investing a lot on raising awareness about AI. And on the one hand, we have that students will need to be able to use these tools when they graduate, but we also need to guarantee that what they produce is their own work. So we have what we call a 2-lane system of assignments. So some assignments aim to prepare them for life and work using AI tools. So where we say, okay, you can use this tool, you can use this tool. So and any AI tool that I suggest in the workshop, I have a consultation with the lecturer say. For example, the proofreading one, like most people use Grammarly. I say, okay, can I suggest this tool? This is what it does. This is an example. And they say, everybody has said, yes, that's fine if they learn to use Rightful.
I was especially curious about the Elicit tool for reading.
Well, since what Elicit does is help them find sources and help them understand information from sources. So it's because Elicit is not generative AI. So there's a difference between generative AI and then an AI that just gives you information. And so it's a bit different. So Elicit won't write the essay for you. Okay. Now, Daniel, how are connections, collaboration established with lecturer? Is it a top-down approach? It started with bottom-up. So it started with us in the Learning Hub deciding, okay, we need to do this. Let's get a couple of lecturers and make the proposal and see if they do. So we were going to pilot it with 2, and it ended up being 7 because people said, oh, we want it as well. And then it started with me emailing lecturers in units where they had things like high failure rates, high number of academic integrity breaches, high percentage of international students. And here in the, that they are complaining, oh, the English level of the students is not the same. So we approach those coordinators and say, is this something you would like to do? This is what you need to do. It's only a meeting with you. So we try to keep their workload at a minimum. So we just ask them for either a meeting and now even to fill a form and to give us access to their resources. So if they add us to their to a past Canvas site, we get all the information we need. And if they tell us, give us in an email or in a form, what are the main issues that you see? And then maybe posting an announcement on Canvas to remind students to go to the workshops. So it started in this bottom-up approach. And then with the results that we were getting, we were reporting to the UE Senate and executive. And then it started to be top-down. And then associate deans are asking their staff to do it. And then we go and present and show them what we have accomplished. And the University of Sydney, as hierarchical as it is, the dean cannot say you have to do this. You have to convince the lecturers to buy in. So it's a matter of presenting and talking and people recommending it and say, hey, they did this with my students, maybe you would like to try. So that's our approach. As I said, I cannot tell you. So the information I've got is if the student is what the band, if they take SCANA, what band they are in. But I cannot. It is an elite university in the case where, for example, many students in that case of chemical engineering, we had 90 people that had to have a 96 ATAR, 96% ATAR. But when the students come, so it's non-compulsory, so they make the choice. We tell them, this is what we're going to cover. If you want to come, come. And in most cases, the students are very, even, as I said, even students in Band 3 do better than, that attend, do better than the students in Band 3 that don't attend. One example is in psychology, where the students in Band 3 that attended got like, on average, like 68%, and the ones that didn't attend got like 55%. So there was a huge difference in the Band 3s that attended and didn't attend. So there are some specific units of study where the marking is more stringent and the lecturers requirement more, that just coming from an elite school does not suffice. There is some academic language support, like the ability to synthesize sources is, I don't think they teach that in any elite school. So it's something that you need to learn. So again, it varies in only a few, like in music, in the chemical engineering one, we do it in their class time, but in most cases, we run them online, usually after 5, from 5 to 6:30. Monday to Thursday, we try to schedule them 2 weeks before their assignment submission so that they have time to implement what they're doing. If we do it too early, they're not thinking about the assignment yet. If we do it too late, they don't have time to implement. So,
Alex, I wonder if you could read the question, because people watching the Zoom recording,
sorry. Yeah, so
may
they
not
were
know what you're asking and
yeah.
answering.
Okay, so that was it. They were asking me if we run we run the sessions during class time. So only a few are run during class time. Most of them we run in via Zoom, 5 to 6:30. We try to find a time slot with timetabling where there are minimum clashes with their schedule. Now, Anna, you have a question?
Yeah, but there is
another one in the chat before me. So if you want to, or okay.
How valuable is that for you see the information provided by the lecturers about writing expected? That's crucial, because that's what they are the ones doing the marking, and everybody has, even though academic writing is only one, every lecturer focuses on one thing in particular. Like what I say in law, they want every sentence with a reference. And the other one, it's all about synthesis. So if you're paraphrasing perfectly, but you don't synthesize, then you're gonna fail. So it's very important, their feedback, because it's what they find problematic in the students' writing. Establishing legitimacy with lectures, I don't know. I think we all act on good faith, and we listen to them. Some are very, for example, there is one lecturer that doesn't want us to deal with the assignment, so we ask them what they want from us, and we tell them what we can offer, and they tell us. So some, for example, want that we take them through everything. Others say, no, use something different or be more generic, or I want you to focus just in grammar or something like this, because they don't want us to discuss the assignment in detail. So most those are only rare cases, but it's about establishing a dialogue about what they want from us and what we can offer, I think would be and consulting every decision. For example, the decisions regarding AI, to tell them, okay, there is this tool, this is what it does. Do you think we can use it? So
Can I ask a question, Alexandra? Sorry.
yeah.
That intrigues me that they wouldn't want you to support
There is
what would be the
one
rationale
in
for that?
particular, because that is a master's in TESOL, and they are teaching academic literacy as well, and they say, okay, just focus on grammar. I don't want you to focus on the assignment, or the assignment is very close. So there was this particular lecturer who says, I just want you to teach them academic writing in general, like grammar in general, but I don't want you to like deconstruct the assignment with them. We go with what they want. So
yeah, I totally get that, but I'm just wondering why that would be the approach, especially from a TESOL academic.
Exactly. So they don't. It's like they don't want us to overlap on and give them too much guidance on.
Alex, it's 5:02. I'm just conscious of time. We have maybe a couple more minutes, so maybe one or two more questions. I think towards the end of chat there's a couple of questions there.
Yeah, so there was one about the library, how we liaise with them. We have a very good relationship with the library, and we have a community of practice with the library. And for issues about referencing, we usually send it to them. So there is a bit of an overlap there. So paraphrasing, synthesizing, summarizing is with us, but the actual referencing is with them. But we work together in many ways. In some cases, there is a workshop by the library, and then there's a workshop by us. So we see what each other does, and we look at each other's material before covering it. So that's we work closely with the library. Most of them we run them individually. As I said, the exception was a chemical engineering one where where he was there and he could give feedback and make annotations about maybe you should use this database and focus on this or blah blah. And when you don't know about things, you ask. Like when you don't understand things about the assignment instructions, sometimes it's not clear, and you have to be very diplomatic. We have had cases where a new coordinator looks at the assignment and they don't understand it. and then I work with one where we redesign the assignment because it had been designed previously and the new person didn't make sense. And honestly, the assignment didn't make sense. So we had to redo it, and we worked together to redesign the assignment. So yeah, there's I mean, everybody has been very, very nice so far, and they have been very helpful. And the fact that we are not forcing it on them, that it's their choice to do it or not, So sometimes they say, okay, and they don't do much. And then if they see the value in it, then they're more keen and more cooperative in the next iteration. So we've been expanding. There's only one that we dropped because they were not interested at all, and they just didn't have time and didn't care much. So we have only stopped one. That's been the only case.
I might butt in there, Alexandra, and call the presentation to an end.
Okay.
I'd love everyone to join me in physically or virtually thanking Alexandra for a really interesting session, very thought-provoking. Embedded workshops and working with academics and going into faculty is always interesting, I think, for most of us. So that's fantastic, a really interesting and relevant session. Our next one is on the 29th of May, so a little bit over a month away. And it's around the one-to-one context. So it's around academic advising strategies and pedagogy. It's going to be another panel session like our first one was. So really interesting. People found that very useful. So it'll be interesting to see what different centers focusing on the one-to-one context, how they operate and what they do. So we'll see you there. That'll be advertised in the next few days with an invitation sent out as usual. So thank you very much for supporting the PD that we're doing. And don't forget, if you haven't already, to look at our Talking All podcast, which is available on the website as well. We've got one up there with more to follow. Okay, on that note, right on time, I'll say goodbye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.